right, I'm going to ask our Czech Republic Missions team to join us up here, and we're just going to take a seat on the stairs and share family style this morning. So just on either side, just go ahead and make yourself comfortable. Well, it's good to be back, and it was good to be away, and it was good to serve and do the work of the ministry in a different setting, but it's always good to come home to family. And we are so excited to be back and to share with you guys this morning. What a week while we were away. I mean, there's no possible way to retell everything that happened. So it's just not going to happen this morning for you. We're going to do our best to consolidate and get some stories out there, but it's not all going to happen. But we will continue to share in the weeks and months to come through just different creative ways. 5,929 miles, 24 hours of travel, 2 planes and a bus, little to no sleep. I was the no sleep one. I mean, I'm sure there was others, but anyone get any sleep? Some people? No? Okay. But we arrived safe and sound in the Czech Republic, and we were so excited to be there. Just to mention, there's a couple team members that are away this morning, and that is Kenzie Womack and Stephanie Kerr, and also Kaylee, who is in Canada, who joined us on the trip. She, as you guys know, her and Joel are there trying to work out some visa issues, and she can't be in America right now, so she just flew right over America, no problem, right into the Czech Republic, so didn't break any laws. She's all good. One overall mark of this trip was the connection built between us and you, by extension, and the church there. Immediately, the sense of unity began as we met Pastor Larry, which is the pastor of the church that we were working with there, with his California shirt on as he met us in the airport. He's like, I didn't know how to make myself known, so I just wore a California shirt. We're like, dude, we know you. Like, we would recognize you. But anyway, that introductory moment, that initial moment of contact, continued to build and grow within the other members of the team who were just meeting him for the first time as the week progressed. And Marcia, actually, she summarized it this way, and I wanted her to share just a sentence that she shared with us.
The Lord has no boundaries around the world to connect his body.
Absolutely what we experienced. No boundaries. Interesting enough, the name of Pastor Larry's church is No Boundaries. So that was pretty cool. The connection was just unreal with Pastor Larry and some of the young adults that he was working with there and the relationships. But even within the team, the connection and the unity that we felt and experienced was really beautiful. And Sylvia, I want you to kind of share with us on the unity of the team.
So not all of us could always go on certain things, but I just felt even those who stayed back and those who went, there was just such a unity that we would band together, we would pray, we would prophesy, and it just felt like every moment of the trip, there never felt like there was one person left out. There just felt like such a deep connection and a deep respect, and it just, like we said, a deep unity between all of us.
So super cool with that is, look, we didn't know when we went that all 11 of us wouldn't be able to go to everything. We just kind of assumed we would. Getting there, it kind of makes a lot of sense. You know, that would take a lot of vehicles, and sometimes in different contexts that would be a little overwhelming. You know, when we're meeting with a mayor of a city for 11 of us to walk in, it's just a little much. So we were broken down to smaller groups for some of the things. And you guys, that could have been very disappointing for the team members. But no, They handled it, and they just didn't handle it, but they totally conquered it. And the team members that stayed behind, and it was different ones all the time, would come together and pray and intercede and lift up and contend. And they would begin to prophesy over things that needed to be released in the meetings that the others were at. And then we would come back and debrief in the evening, and it was like verbatim, word for word. We're like, oh, well, one of us shared that exactly the same sentence, exactly the same word. It was just the sense of unity in the spirit and the natural was just unbelievable. We had a wide spectrum of opportunities in the Czech Republic during our time there. We would start every morning with high school presentations. So we went into a local art school there, and every team member went prepared with a presentation from their life. Every one of us shared many times. We had many days and many hours and many classrooms. And we would share on California, on our life, and things like this. And the point for the high school, because this is not a Christian school, was English, so they could hear conversational English. Because they only, when you learn a language, you learn more of the professional way to say it. Well, they wanted us to talk in conversation and then get into smaller groups and just speak with them one-on-one or three-on-one or things like that. So that was the point for them. The point for us was to build relationship, to invite them back to a party, an American-themed party. It wasn't our idea. It was Pastor Larry's idea, but we went with it. So we brought all of our American snacks and our American photo booth props and our red, white, and blues, and it was great. But our plan was to build enough of a relationship with these students during the conversations and the presentations that they would actually want to spend time with us on the Friday night coming. So that was what we did for them, and that night, back up, Pastor Larry has tried this many, many times before with different groups. He has tried to pull off a party where these students would come. He has never had one student from the school show up. He's tried and tried and tried, and it's been very disappointing. And he even said to us, I don't know if anyone will show up, but we will try. That Friday night, we had over 20 students from the high school show up and over 30 overall show up. Absolutely amazing. Really cool things happened that night as we were there, but I want Faith to share a story of something in specific.
While I was at the American party, I and many others met a student named Vicky, who is struggling with depression, self-harm, and eating disorder. From the moment I met her, she was heavily on my heart ever since. I really wanted her to have fun at this party and not feeling to be forced to do anything. So I invited her to join me in a couple games, but she said that she was fine as she had Danny to sit with. Vicky, afterwards, me and Danny were talking to her, and she had lots of big questions for us. One of the questions she asked was if her dad would go to hell because he's an atheist, and so is her whole family. As we went on in the conversation, she asked many more questions, and the team has kept her in our prayers ever since. And last Monday, she shared with me that she asked her mom what she would say if she became a Christian. And since then, she has prayed for the very first time.
That's it. So this young girl in the high school, I had conversations with her teachers, and they have a lot of issues with her. She's very aggressive and shows a lot of aggression because she's transitioning. and she refuses to be addressed in the female way. It wants to be known as a boy. But in the Czech language, you have verbs and nouns that are male, and you have verbs and nouns that are female. And the teachers have a hard time because what they're looking at is not what they're supposed to be saying. And so she would get very aggressive. But when we came, she wasn't aggressive. She really responded. And it started at that party when she came. She was at a bus stop, and Kaylee saw her and goes, "I think I recognize her." And Renee said, "Well, go talk to her." And so she went and invited her in. She wasn't sure if she was going to come, and so Kaylee just loved on her and welcomed her in and brought her up. And even like so many of the team members have had contact with her. And Sylvia was sitting talking with her, and she goes, "Well, you know who I am, don't you?" And Sylvia's like, "Well, yeah, you're Vicky." And she goes, "Yeah, but I'm transitioning." And she goes, "Well, that's okay. We're just here to love on you." And so there's so many people just loved on her and allowed her to ask questions and be herself. And it's through Instagram Messenger that the team has kept in touch with her. I know that Esme has had contact with her and is sending her Bible video stories to watch. And God is really doing something phenomenal in this young lady's life. God is really impacting her and speaking to her, and we believe that there's something for her whole family. So it's such a cool with just one of the students.
Actually, and that was the Friday night, and on the Sunday, some of those Friday night students that had never showed up to an event before came back on Sunday for church. So, I mean, just... this is huge for them. Pastor Larry's been praying for decades for this type of breakthrough in the student population there. So we were just blessed to kind of come in and pull some fruit out of it. But really, he's the one that's been doing this. We held 2 church services. We held a Wednesday night service where I had the opportunity to preach, and I spoke on a similar message that I preached here on hope being an anchor, and how it's anchored at our rock bottom, how Jesus is there at rock bottom. And that was a great night. We prayed and prophesied over everyone in the room. And it was wild and amazing. Sunday, we had another service where Craig preached, and he had the opportunity to present a house message of the ecclesia. And I mean, he did it so well. And I'm telling you what, that message was revolutionary for them. They had never heard this before. This was fresh revelation, and just so timely for where they're at. And so that was really neat. We actually, and to kind of follow up with that, we had prior to Sunday, Faith had a prophetic word, because when we met as team here, we would like, "God, what are you saying? What are words of knowledge? Who are people that we have done divine appointments with?" And, God would show us people and colors and things like that. So we were hanging out one evening in Kalarivari, in the city that we were ministering in. And we were walking down, getting ready to find dinner. And we ate super late there, guys. Like, I was starving every day. But so we were walking to find dinner, and Faith's like, "Oh my gosh, like over there, that lady, that's the lady." And so we naturally assumed this lady would speak Czech. So she asked Pastor Larry, would he come with her to translate? And he was kind of like, "What is this about?" So she begins telling him she had a word of knowledge, and she has to speak encouragement over this lady. And he was like, I'm uncomfortable with that. Because it was out of the box. It was out of the box for him, and he was so nervous. Anyway, they approached the lady, and come to find out she speaks German, not Czech. So Larry's like, "I'm out." So he walks away, and through some broken English, she was able to encourage this lady. But just to reiterate, this ecclesia, this called out sent ones, message of the house, but totally new for them. And now they're going to be walking that out. So that was really awesome. During the Wednesday night service, in particular, something pretty incredible happened, and there's a backstory to this. So I'm going to have Esme to share that right now.
Hello, everyone. I felt during the service to kind of backtrack a little bit to explain the story because I felt like it wouldn't give justice to the things that God has been working on. So in 2016, I went on my first missions trip. During that trip, I went with Pastor Shelby and Pastor Juan, and Sylvia was there, and Stephanie was actually there. And during that trip, I really felt like there was going to be a lot of shift and movement. So shortly after, a lot of us came over here and started being part of this family. And I knew that I had already said yes to mission work, but I didn't know what direction I was going to go. And of course, I've known both Pastors Renee and Craig, and the fact that they were here made me feel safe. When they offered the opportunity to go, I was like, yes, of course. Like, I trust them. And, my heart was yes, obviously. So we get there, and I had been praying about what my position would be there. And I just kept hearing God say, like, stay still. You're there to help. Like, relax. I'm like, okay. Well, on the first night, we go to this service, and I'm worshiping. I'm just like, okay, Lord, whatever you want to do. I'm just kind of, there spending time with Jesus. And then it's time for prayer. So someone comes behind me and taps me, and I turn around, and it's this woman. And she is originally from the Czech. She speaks Czech. And as she starts to ask for what to pray for, and they're translating, she's telling me, she had breast cancer and wanted prayer for that and for her daughter. And so I begin to pray for her, and then she just stops me. And she says in Spanish, "Do you speak Spanish?" And I'm like, "Yes." She's like, "Will you pray for me in Spanish?" I'm like, "Yes." So I start praying in Spanish. And the moment that the words flowed out of my mouth, it's like she just began to just break. And I could feel the Lord just speak to her directly. It was amazing. So afterwards, she begins to explain her walk with Christ, and she's only been a Christian for about 2 years. And that during that 2-year walk, she met Jesus while she was in Spain. And so she actually learned about Jesus in Spanish. And she began to learn Spanish. And so she had been craving, especially during this difficult time, to be prayed over in Spanish, because that's how she related the most in her relationship with Christ. And that while she was in service, very upset about her situation, she was asking God, who from this team should I go to? And she only saw the backs of us because she was sitting in the back. So that God highlighted my back. And so she came to me. So I just really felt like, especially this morning during worship, like God is so intentional. He was intentional from the moment he said, go to your first mission, go with the people that you trust and make the shifts and the moves that he's asked you to do. Land at the church that he's asked you to go to. Trust the pastors that are there now. Go on this other missions trip and be the only Spanish-speaking one on the team so that you can pray over a woman in the Czech Republic who wanted prayer in Spanish. So God is awesome.
Yeah. Seriously. How wild and truly unexpected is that God would send one of our Latinos from here to an Eastern European country to minister to somebody in Spanish. I don't know. My mind's blown.
Yeah, mind blown. So cool. We also had 2 separate meetings with political leaders, and this was pretty powerful times and special. One with the mayor of Kalarivari and one with the deputy mayor of Ostrov. And in these meetings, these leaders weren't Christ followers, and we were able to encourage, prophesy, declare things over them and over the city on a professional and personal level. And we were also able to pray over them, and which we didn't know that as we entered the room, but by the end, we were full on praying for them. And very, very special time indeed for us as representing you in this church to be able to go and minister on a political level of that area of influence. So that was really awesome. Then there was a baptism. The one elderly man, just the four of us on the team that went that day, and a handful of his family members. And Danny actually summarized this so well, and I want you to share that.
I was a mess at the baptism, so hopefully I'll hold it together better here than I did there. I struggled a lot to be able to go on the trip just physically, and up until 3 nights before, wasn't exactly sure it was going to happen. Very much knew that my daughter needed to be there, and God had clearly said in my heart that I was supposed to be there too. So God was just so gracious, and got to be halfway across the world at this whole other country, feeling really good, and getting to meet with mayors and school officials. It was just absolutely incredible. And Saturday we spent down in the center of Kilarivari and saw buildings. I'd never seen buildings that old in my life. It was absolutely beautiful. And it was raining and everything by the time we got back, and we were supposed to go to a baptism that night and or that afternoon. And there's really nothing in me that wanted to go, truth be told. And in just one moment, that just went away and deposited. It was like I just had to be there. The idea of going across the world to see a man's public declaration of his faith in Jesus, it just became the most important thing, but not everybody could go. So I just waited until I got the text asking if I wanted to go, and got to go. And in a Czech backyard up on this hillside, I was totally fine until Josiah started with worship. And all of a sudden on this hillside, to see this little old man make his public declaration of faith in this very cold pool. I'm sure it was cold because they told me it was cold, not because I checked it. But it was just God saying, in all of the world, this is where you're supposed to be. In all of the world, in this moment, because this man wanted Americans at his baptism. He became every bit as important on that trip and impactful as the mayor or Vicky, or, it was just one of those moments where God was just saying, if you'll just listen, you'll be right where you need to be. And showing the value of this man. And it was wonderful because in that moment, Betty, it was Saturday morning here as we were doing the baptism, and Betty had texted Renee with a word. And so it just felt like all of heaven was right there looking at this man, making his public declaration of Christ. And we got to be there from America, from San Diego. It was just absolutely impactful.
It's pretty awesome as we're singing the worship songs in English, and then Pastor Larry does this little mini message in Czech. And then we sing more in English, and then they talk in Czech. And, nobody understands anyone, but it was all good. Most likely, the most out-of-the-box opportunity we had was going to the hospital psychiatric ward in another country. This was not the American way. So whatever you picture here, or maybe you've had some experience here, it was very different there. There was about 7 of us that went. And this was the beginning scene out of a horror movie, I kid you not. Josiah is going to share a story of this hospital visit.
So a lot happened in our little time at the hospital, so I'm going to try to sum it up and just kind of give a good overview of what happened. So at the beginning of our time, the atmosphere was super, super tense. Even from just stepping into the building, to walking into the common area where the patients were going to be invited to come and spend some time with us. It was just really tense and chaotic and restless, and it felt just a little bit scary. There were a few patients, as we were waiting for all of them to file in, that began to manifest demons and come against us spiritually. They began to heckle, which I don't really know what that means, but they they did that though, and I've recently learned it means to taunt. And so yeah, it was just scary. So I'm playing my guitar, I'm waiting for them to come in, and yeah, my heart just begins to hurt, and it's pounding so loud, and it's just a lot. And as soon as they're all in and I get to go ahead to start singing and worshiping, the atmosphere changed almost instantly. I didn't feel it right away because I felt like I was still in the middle of it. But the first song we were singing was No Longer Slaves, and Pastor Larry actually asked us to do that. It was me, Kenzie, and Sylvia. And as soon as we began singing No Longer Slaves, it completely changed. It was like our spirits just began to fight back against everything. And it totally started, I think Sylvia said it totally started this like whirlwind in the room throughout our little 4-song set. And as soon as Kenzie finished it off with House on a Hill by Amanda Cook, there was this incredible peace that entered the room. It completely shut down everything that had been happening at the beginning, and it like paved the way for us to begin to release testimonies and pray and prophesy for these people. So after worship, Stephanie and I were able to share our mental health victory testimonies and just how we walked through it and are still and just things like that. And I didn't notice anything change in that moment, but I heard that people were really responding to what we were doing, and all eyes were on us. I mean, they were completely engaged, and I felt like that was just incredible from all the chaos that had been going on at the beginning. And then after Stephanie and I had finished, we were invited, or the patients were invited if they wanted prayer or just to talk to us or whatever, to come. And so we got into little pairs with translators and we began to talk to the patients. My mom and I paired up, and the first woman we talked to was named Lucy. She actually spoke pretty good English, so we didn't need a translator, and that was kind of nice, just to be able to talk directly to her. And she was super small, she was super sweet, and she was just super curious and just wanted to know and wanted to find out about Jesus and how he could change the situation she's in. We talked to her for quite a while, and by the end, we were able to lead her to accept Jesus in her life. That was really cool. So we told her how to pray and that she can pray at any time, not just in the evening. And yeah, it was really great. So yeah, I mean, I pray about her often, and I don't know, I just have a feeling she's doing really well. Anyways, we also prayed for another woman, and we spent a long time with both of these people, and so we only got to talk to two. And this other lady, I think her name was Edka, but I'm not positive. We actually, as we were talking to her, we found out that she actually is a Christian, and she was only admitted to the hospital 6 weeks ago now, or 6 or 7 weeks ago now, but 5 weeks ago when we were talking to her. And she was really just like trying to walk through her own healing journey in the hospital. And so she was having a hard time because she's taken away from her family, who all of them are worship leaders and really involved in the church. And she's taken away from her 2 kids and husband, and she's just really trying to get healing in her own way. And so she's just walking through her journey, and my mom and I were able to encourage her. And I encouraged her to start writing songs, and we encouraged her that she's in the right place, and that her mental disabilities are not a mistake. God didn't make her wrong. this is exactly what he planned, and she's in the hospital for a reason. And so, she came out of that very encouraged. She got a lot more talkative and was asking us things about where we came from and about our family and our lives. And it was just all in all an incredible experience, and just to see the transformation of the room and the patience and just the looks on their faces from beginning to end. It was all like unmistakable what God was doing, and just absolutely crazy.
That was so powerful. Such a good time. I'm going to hand this over to Craig, but I'm just so incredibly proud of this team and the ones that aren't here, the entire team. And family, just be proud. They really represented you well. They served with passion. They absolutely led in humility. There was no arrogance in any way. They united together as family. It's not easy being in close quarters with so many people for so long. And they were exceptional. There's a lot of strong personalities on this team. And we weren't sure how it was going to go. And it went really, really well. Really well. They just did it and did life and served together and just be proud. We were in awe of the team. And we had 3 teenagers with us, which we've never taken teenagers to Europe before. And so that was really cool. And they were just like every other member of the team. Just served and did everything that was asked of them. And it was just powerful. So I actually don't know if I've seen it done as well as what this team has done. Yeah, so well done. This was not just noticed by us, but Pastor Larry, before we left, shared with us that he has had over 30 teams come and serve with him at his church and in his city over the years. And he said that our team, our Crosspoint team, was the best by far. He overemphasized his invitation for us to come back again, that we were welcome anytime, and to please come soon.
The thing with Larry is he's not he doesn't compliment like overly, and so like there's times when we'd be like sitting around debriefing, and he'd debrief with us at the end of the day, and one of the team members would be like, "So, Pastor Larry, like, how did you think that went?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, it's good. It's good." That was it. And so, having known him for such a long time, I've never known him to over compliment like that. And so he embraced each member of the team, and it was a very cool moment to hear him just compliment us and compliment the family here like that. I want to talk to you as we wrap up. I want to bring an encouragement. I want to encourage you. And I've called this Seize Your Moment. Seize your moment. Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 10, Paul writes, he says, "For we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ Jesus so we can do the good things he planned for us long ago." God brings opportunities to us so that we can partner with him and partner with what he's doing. These opportunities are what I call moments. And family, I want to encourage you, seize your moment. When God brings these opportunities, when God brings moments to you, don't let them slip through your hands like sand or like water, but grab a hold of them and seize your moment. God has planned out in advance incredible things for us to do, but it's not a guarantee. It's not a promise that we'll actually do these things, because we have a part to play. We partner with God. So he's got these incredible things planned out for each one of us to do that he's planned long in advance. But they only happen if we seize the moment, if we actually do the things that he brings to us to do. We can miss out on them. And then when we get, when we get to heaven, I believe that we're going to see all of those opportunities that we missed out on because we didn't seize the moment. We partner and we work with God when we seize those moments that he's put in front of us. And all 11 members of this team seized the moment that God had put in front of them, and they walked out incredible things. They saw incredible things. And they did incredible things that God had planned long, long in advance for them to do. They are forever changed in the people that they met and that the people that they loved on. They carried the message of the house well, where they loved on the one, and they stopped for the one. Not just the students in the school, but the faculty. We got to build a relationship with the teachers and sit and love on them and hear from them. And there were times when they would ask us, what do you think as the church? How does the church view this? And how do you deal with those who are transitioning? And we had these incredible opportunities just to stop and love on the one. So when God brings you a moment, it's your responsibility to seize that moment and not let it pass you by. Paul also writes in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 6 through 9, he says this, I planted, Apollos watered, but God all the while was causing the growth. So neither is the one who plants nor the one who waters anything, but only God who causes the growth. He who plants and he who waters are one in importance and esteem, working towards the same purpose. But each one will receive their own reward according to his own labor. For we are God's fellow workers, his servants working together, and you are God's cultivated field, his garden, his vineyard, God's building. One person plants, one person waters. And I'll add this to it because it's a natural progression of the analogy that Paul's using, and one person harvests. But it's always God who brings the increase. It's always God who brings the growth. The planter isn't more important than the one who waters. See, because if the planter doesn't do his job, it doesn't seize the moment to plant, then the waterer has nothing to water and the harvester has nothing to harvest. See, each person's role is equally important. There's not one that has greater value than another. And so I say to you, family, seize your moment. Whatever the moment is that God brings before you, seize that moment, because God is doing something in you and through you, and we have to partner with him if we're going to see God, do those incredible things in our lives and through our lives. So many different times, there's 3 or 4 different times on this trip where the team was split, as Pastor Renee had already talked about, where 4 or 5 would go and then the rest would stay. And each time that took place, everybody seized their moment. Everybody slid in and they grabbed hold of their role, and whether their role was to humbly come and offer, encouragement, to them. It was prophecy in disguise. We prophesy in disguise over them. To a mayor who's not a Christ follower, or whether it was prayer support, whatever the case was, everyone did that. They seized their moment. There was no passively hanging out in the rooms or just waiting for the next thing to come along. Everyone contended. Every role is equally important, and every role is working towards the same goal of advancing the kingdom of God. There will always be reasons not to seize a moment that God brings before you. There is a long list of reasons why we shouldn't or couldn't seize the moment. Sometimes we just doubt, is this my moment? God, are you talking to me? Are you in this? And we doubt this. I know there were several team members before the trip were doubting, am I supposed to be on this trip? I know Esmeralda, we had conversations about that. I had conversations with Stephanie about that. We had conversations with Sylvia about, is this God, is God in this? And can you imagine if Esmeralda had just taken that, I really don't think that this is what God has for me. And she let the moment pass by. That one lady who was desperately longing to have someone minister to her in Spanish, she would not have received like God had wanted her to. But because Esmeralda said yes and recognized the moment and what God was doing and says, okay, I'm going to go. I may not fully understand my role. I may not fully know exactly why I'm supposed to be there, but I just feel God on it. That woman is just one example of something that Esmeralda had done. She received powerfully. And Sylvia was an invaluable member of the team. Really, and she partnered with the worship team. She loved on people. She prophesied over people. And there was a moment where not only did God work through her, but God worked in Sylvia. It was incredible. So at the hospital in the psychiatric ward, the lady she's the head over that entire department, she goes to Pastor Larry's church. And what we did in that hospital, they had never done before. She had dreamed of and wanted to do. And Pastor Larry just didn't have the team that he felt confident could do it. And so when we kind of asked for some of these opportunities, he went out on a limb and set these things up for us. And so we were the first ones. Afterwards, she's just a sweet woman. She was hugging all of us, and what's that? And she's all fire. She's hugging each one of us and blessing us. And then she gets to Sylvia, and I'm like talking like this over here, and I turn and when Pastor Larry's ready to go, like we go. He's like, it's time to go now. And then he just leaves, right? And you have to go or you get left behind. And so we turn and the director of the hospital has got her hands laid on Sylvia and she's just going after it. She's like praying and prophesying in another language. And like, I'm looking at Sylvia and going, she's going down. Like she's going to hit in the parking lot on the pavement, she's going down. And I said, I'm not catching her because if it's God, this is going to be real. She goes down, it's going to be all Jesus. But we left. Everybody left. Like most of us left. And there's Sylvia just being prophesied and prayed over. But receiving something so powerful that she would have missed out on the impartation into her life if she didn't seize the moment for the trip. You know, Danny could not have gone because of the physical struggles that she was dealing with, but she pushed through in faith. She believed that she was supposed to be on that trip, and she believed that Kenzie was supposed to be on that trip. But that could have been her opportunity to say, you know what, I'll sit this one out, Kenzie, next time. We'll go next time. She didn't allow that to happen. Kaylee is pregnant. She released that on the trip. She's a new mom. Addie is just over a year old. She could have said, no, this is not. And she's dealing with morning sickness and all the things that come with being pregnant. That could have been her excuse to say, no, I'll miss this one. I'll pass this one out. You know, but she didn't. She pressed through. They showed tremendous trust and faith in God in seizing that moment, and they were used to deliver powerful prophetic words and declarations. Both Kaylee and Danny sat with us as we sat with the mayor of Karlovy Vary, who it translated to English is Carlsbad. It is actually that city is the sister city of Carlsbad here. There's a sign up outside of City Hall that says Carlsbad, California, USA, sister city. This is incredible. It really is. And they sat with us in that meeting. And Danny did an incredible prophetic declaration hanging keys around the mayor's neck. And like these aren't Christian believers. And the contact to get us in the room is not a Christian. A lady from Pastor Larry's church knows this lady who's a very influential woman in the city. Her and her husband are part owners of a world famous hotel where some of the James Bond movies were filmed. And the now mayor used to be the general manager there. So they went it was a long, connection point to get us in the room. And that lady who was our connection point, not a believer, is sitting there crying as Danny's hanging keys around this mayor's neck, and we're encouraging her and prophesying over it. And Kaylee's releasing prophetic words over her. It was awesome. It was everything that this house carries. And it was a connection point for Pastor Larry that he will continue on, because he was able to give her card and say, I will pray for you anytime. If you ever need anything, let me know. And we're making these connections. It was family. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. But they would have missed the moment. They would have, if they had allowed the physical limitations to say, no, not this time. We had single moms leave their kids, both Esmeralda and Sylvia, leave their kids behind so that they could seize the moment. That's a very easy one to say, God, I'll wait. Not this time. Not this time. And as I mentioned, Kaylee leaving her toddler for the first time. Moms, you know what that's like when your toddler is 15 months old and you're going away for a week. And Joel stepped up and did incredible. And there are other members of the team that recognized right away that this was their moment. Like Marcia, who had a random Czech Republic connection point the week before we announced the trip. Someone from the Czech Republic had reached out to her for her to audition for a voiceover job. And so then we get up, that happened during the week, and then on Sunday we get up and we're like, hey, we're doing this trip to the Czech Republic. She comes to me after, she goes, I don't know what God's doing, but I'm coming, right? She was all in the moment. She recognized and she seized her moment. Like there's like Kenzie, who knew from the beginning she was supposed to be on this trip, and she seized her moment. And her and Danny, made that happen. And my kids have been praying for about 6 years to make this trip, as we've told them stories about it. And so when it came up, when the opportunity came, they seized it, and they were like, we are going on this trip. In the analogy that Paul used, this team could be viewed as the harvesters, the ones that went and gathered in what was grown. But I want you to know that your role, family, your role on this team was no less important than any person here. You. Some of these team members would not have been able to make this trip if you didn't partner financially with us in the bagel fundraiser, right? Like if nobody bought bagels and we just had all these bagels left over, we would have been in trouble, right? And some of you sowed directly into their trips. You seized your moment. You recognized what God was doing, and you seized that moment. And you said, I'm going to partner with what God's doing. All the fruit and the harvest it's not ours, it's ours. It's an entire family celebration. Breakthrough wouldn't have happened if some of you didn't gather together and pray for us. You didn't answer. If you wouldn't have answered the call to pray, we would not have broken through. I don't believe that we would have saw, almost 30 students come from the high school who heard transformative testimonies. Like it wasn't a church thing, but Kaylee shared her story of salvation. I shared my story of salvation. They knew all about Jesus by the time that they left. It wouldn't have happened. The political meetings that we had and the breakthroughs and the connections, the hospital visits, they could have gone sideways very quickly, but they didn't. And then one night, on the Saturday night when the baptism was taking place, I got sick. Friday night, I got sick. Everybody ate all the same food. We ate all at the same restaurant. No one ordered anything different. I was the only person to get sick. I was up in the middle of the night, and I right away I recognized this is a spiritual attack. And Renee had reached out to you, to the family, to the intercessors, to say, pray, Craig's not well. And it took me out for an entire day. The team went off, and they had some things planned, and I tried. I gathered myself up, and I went outside, and I was like, this is not happening. And I went back. I slept the entire day until the evening. But that breakthrough, the healing that I received from that spiritual attack came because you guys prayed. It's not just about seizing the moment. It's also about recognizing the moment. Recognizing what God is asking of us in that moment. Because God's not going to ask the same thing in that moment of every single person. Right? Like it wasn't God's plan for the entire Crosspoint family to make this trip to Eastern Europe. As fun as that would have been for y'all, and then the leadership I probably would have spent the entire time just completely stressed out. That's not what God was asking for all of us to do. You had to recognize your role in that moment. So you recognize your role in the moment, and then you seize that role. God will ask some to go, and he will ask others to pray. God will ask some to give financially and others to help cover things at home so people can go. Because somebody had to look after kids. They didn't look after themselves. Someone had to look after Peaches, our little puppy. Like if no one looks after Peaches, one of my family's not going. Landon, love your bros. You won't always be asked to do the same things in each moment, but your role in that moment is vital, and I really need you to hear me. Your role in that moment is vital. And sometimes we can diminish our role. Oh, it's not all that important. All I did was pray. All I did was buy a bagel and a coffee. It's not that big a deal. It is a big deal. It's important. It's vital. Because without you, this doesn't happen. With the incredible things that happened on this trip, we recognize that there were many teams from many other places in the world that had gone before us, sown seed. They watered plants before we ever got there. Pastor Larry, who's been working faithfully for decades, and he's my age. He's a couple years older than me. He's 45. Because when we came to the American Party, he said to me, he goes, okay, most of these students, they're going to understand English because they all come from the English classes. He said, so I'm going to stay in the back because I'm like an old man. And, and they don't want to see me. I'm like, Larry, like, we're the same age. How old are you? He goes, I'm 45. He goes, we're the same age. He goes, yeah, but you're American. You're cool. It's like, but he's faithfully served these cities and planted these churches for decades so that we could go and partner with them and help bring in the harvest. We recognized, and we sat around as a team, that we were not the be-all and the end-all. We just played a role. We just seized a moment that God had presented to us, an opportunity. But if we don't seize the moment, family, the harvest isn't guaranteed. He partners with us. He's tied himself to us. God could do it all by himself. Right? God can do anything. But he chooses to partner with us, with people. He works through us and with us to advance the kingdom of God throughout the earth. He doesn't have to, but he requires us to seize the moment so that he can work. So don't allow doubt or struggle or excuses or uncomfortableness or fear or finances to ever steal your moment away. Partner with God in faith and watch him use your life to do the miraculous. We present ways to seize the moment many, many times here in our family. One of these, I know every month, if you don't know what this is, then I encourage you to pick up a planner when you come into the building on Sunday mornings. This is our missionary bookmark, and every month, I try. Sometimes I miss a couple weeks, but every month there's a new one that goes out, and it tells you who our missionary is. So the missionary for the month of June, July is Sean Smith, who is coming. We're bringing him in October. He's going to come and minister here. But we do this so that you can be like, oh, I'm going to pray for Sean and the impact that he's having. Because you know what? When you pray for Sean and the impact that he's having, that's your impact. That's your harvest. We do this to remind you about your pledge to give to missions and to our refugee project. Oh yeah. I see this. I'm going to stick it in my Bible so that when I see it, I remember that I'm supposed to give each month or each week or whatever it is that you've committed to God to do. Those are ways to partner with God because we can't always go. I mean, we have houses and families and jobs, but you know what? We can send our prayer. We can send our finances. They can go for us and enable someone to be the harvest while we do the support role. So when we present opportunities, and it's not just here on Sundays, but Monday morning when you go to work, right? Like what Landon did with your wrist, like that's seizing a moment. That was a moment right there. And he's like, I'm not sure if I was going to do this, but I'm just going to go for it. See, there was a moment that God presented to him, and he was struggling with, should I do this? And he didn't let it slip through his fingers. He took hold of it, and he did it. And we saw a miracle. We saw healing. Same thing with Pastor Candy when she got up and she talked about the pressure and removing that and putting the crown of confidence that Jesus gives us. See, that's a moment. And it doesn't have to just happen here, right? What Landon did, that can be done at the workplace. Right? It might be a little odd to do that in the office, Pastor Candy, but you can still do those things. You can still give that prophetic word of encouragement and release a word of knowledge. Just spend time with someone that's alone and love on them. When we send out notices of meal trains, right? Like for Annie and her family, guys, do you know how easy that is? That is so easy to prepare a meal and to drop it off. But do you know the impact that has in someone's life? They feel the tangible love of God. I am loved. I am cared for. You might not be able to be there and hold them, but that's what your food is doing. They know I'm a part of the family. And I know Annie feels that because I've had that conversation with her. She's like, this is my family. I will be there. I'm not going anywhere, were her words. So when we send out those notices on Facebook and through the email, don't be like, oh yeah, that's a good thing. Take the moment. You're busy. You don't have time to cook. That's okay, because in the meal train thing, you can send a Grubhub gift card, and they can just order takeout. So you don't even have to make anything. We try and make things as simple as possible for you. But I want to encourage you as I close. I'm going to close in prayer. Seize the moment. Whatever the moment is, you recognize the moment that God brings before you and don't let it pass by. Don't pass that off. Oh, someone else down the line, they can make a meal, or they can love on that person, or they can pray, or God will heal that person one way or the other. It's okay. I don't have to put myself out there where I feel awkward and uncomfortable. No, he brought that moment to you for you to love on, for you to prophesy, for you to heal the sick, for you to cast out demons, for you to bring in the harvest into the kingdom of God of souls, for you to raise the dead. This is our call. This is the ecclesia. Not just in Sunday mornings inside the four walls of a building, but unleashed throughout the week. Let me pray. Father, we are humbled that you would partner with us to advance the kingdom of God in the earth. Because we know us. We know our shortcomings, and we know our failings. We know our weaknesses, but you partner with us anyway. And you invite us in. And you work through imperfect people working your perfect plan. So I thank you for the moments that you bring to us. And I thank you for the courage that each member of the family shows when they take hold and they seize that moment and they fulfill the role that you've brought to them. And I pray, God, that we would cast down every lie of the enemy that says that wasn't even important. That didn't even mean anything, because every role is vital and important. I pray that you'd bless your family here at Crosspoint. Do something special here, God, with us as we continue to talk and release ecclesia and loving the one, God. We want to transform a city. We want to transform a state, a nation, and the world. This family has global impact, has local city impact, has neighborhood impact, has state impact and influence. And we say, here we are. I want you to do me a favor, just lift a hand up. If you would say, God, here am I, send me, use me, just lift one hand up. Father, you see the hands. Here we are. Use us. We are committing to not let moments pass us by. We will seize the moment. We will recognize the moment. And we will fulfill the role that you put in front of us. So I just pray blessing upon my Crosspoint family in Jesus' name.